It's time to have the RealConvo, a show that brings hope and awareness to those affected by suicide and mental health. As someone who is affected by both, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention Southeast Florida board member Alan Mednick breaks the stigma with his mission that no one ever feels alone. With the help of influential guests in the community, the RealConvo starts now.
When a loved one's in crisis, it could be a really confusing time, and sometimes you just need that extra help of what to do and get that person help. It's RealConvo. I'm Alan Mednick, and welcome to the show. Today we have a really special guest. That the show is sponsored by Clarity Health Solutions and Business Services for You. Today again we have our co-host Jennifer Hoskins-Tomko from Clarity Health Solutions, and we really welcome you and thank you again for coming in.
Thank you.
Our special guest today is you said a professional interventionist.
Correct.
And his name is Evan Jarschauer.
You got it.
How did I get that?
You pronounced it perfectly.
Okay, well I was coached really well in it, so I really appreciate it. So Evan is an interventionist. And can you explain a little bit about what you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, of course, thank you, Alan, and thank you, Jennifer, for having me out on the show today. So a professional interventionist, basically, and I'm going to simplify years and years of families suffering in crisis, loved ones that have been battling addiction, mental health, and other compulsive behaviors. Basically what I do is I work with a family or loved ones, concerned loved ones, putting together a solid plan of action where we first find out what's going on with that individual, where we're going to get them some help. Then we put together a plan of how we're going to get them there, knowing that they're going to be resistant. There's going to be denial. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be battles. There's going to be potentially an all-out, for all intents and purposes, a battle royale of underlying issues and years of miscommunication and family conflict. So then I work to unify loved ones, friends, and family into a very solid, unified, loving group to then present to that individual their love, their concerns, and asking them to then accept a gift of help. Oftentimes they refuse that help. Then my job, in a very loving, understanding, and caring way, but firm way, is to help raise their bottom, that individual's bottom, to a point at which ultimately not only do they accept help, but by establishing a firm foundation for the recovery process, we significantly or exponentially increase the prognosis for long-term recovery.
And that's really important, not only just trying to get the person right now into help, but obviously you got to look long-term in all these interventions that you do.
Absolutely.
So, and again, I want to get really into this quickly, because obviously we only have a half an hour,
Sure.
But that's why I'm going so rapidly.
That's probably the longest answer I was going to give you, by the way.
No. But, I mean, we have a lot of, there's different type of interventions. You have substance abuse,
Sure.
you have mental illness, you have
Yep.
co-occurring.
Yep.
I'm sure a lot of it has to do with co-occurring.
The majority, almost all.
Okay, co-occurring basically means,
Substance abuse and mental health.
okay, together, that someone's struggling
Correct. Which
together.
came first, we don't know, but we need to get this person help.
Okay, and I get a lot of calls. I get calls. I've had 3 this week where people have had loved ones struggling and they didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
When someone has a co-occurring, and that's a tough one,
Yep.
what do you treat first? Do you treat them together? Do you treat them separately? How do you deal with
Yeah,
that?
so that's one of the big questions that families probably ask themselves, or loved ones ask themselves for years and years, and ultimately, when I'm called into a case, it's usually like the therapeutic version of DEFCON 4, where we need to get this person help.
Yeah.
And to necessarily dissect which one came first, we potentially could literally lose somebody in the process of figuring that out. So what I do, is when I go into my cases, I really focus in on right now, what are the symptoms we're dealing with? Understanding the history, but really what's going on right now, and we then establish a solid plan of action built around those symptoms, making sure the program the person's going to is aware of the richer, more robust picture of the history, and let them figure that out. My focus is, right now, this person is cutting, they're making suicidal statements, they are online, in social media, asking for fentanyl. When you're at a point where you are online, in sending instant messages, anybody got any fentanyl? Whether or not it's to address a underlying issue of depression or psychosis or whatever, we need to get you help immediately.
Yeah.
So it's really going in where the symptoms are and then focusing on that for the initial phase of our intervention plan.
So I guess the first thing, you got to get the agreement from the person to get the help. So it doesn't matter if it's drug related or if it's mental health.
Right.
It's getting that agreement first to get help.
And as a licensed psychotherapist as well, and like I was telling Jennifer, not necessarily the best psychotherapist, like, one-on-one kind of thing, but in the context of being an interventionist, it enables me, in the heat of the moment, at the moment of impact, to be able to kind of look at a case where the family may have thought that it was all about substance abuse, or it was all about the depression, and then all of a sudden, wait a second. By the way, Billy, Mary, Steve, Jane, they are responding to internal stimuli right now.
Yeah.
So it's really about kind of going where the family and the loved ones are reporting, but then also being prepared in that heat of that moment to kind of see which direction we need to go based upon the symptomology that's happening right then and there at the moment of impact.
And Evan, I want to say, I think it's great that you are a psychotherapist because it does offer a different picture than somebody who doesn't have that background. That you're going to be able to cue in on certain symptoms that maybe somebody who doesn't have that.
Yeah.
So it's essential, and the dual diagnosis thing is across the board. The overlap is huge. So I think it's great what you're doing.
And that's pretty important. First of all, this is why I wanted to do this show in the first place. And this is why I love doing it, because I meet people like yourself and Jen. I don't want to leave you out, but I didn't even know something like this existed. And what you just give me another tool in my armory to help other people with. So
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I love doing the show and getting it out there. Now, in saying this, again, I call myself an interventionist because I'm assist certified, but it's a different type of interventionist, as we were speaking about before.
Yeah, let me just jump on that real quick. I've met so many really wonderful interventionists who are wonderful at what they do, whether it's specifically working with families with suicide, or with individuals where it is the majority of the issue, or the bulk of the issue, or the issue is the underlying substance abuse. And I have the utmost respect for a lot of those interventionists out there in the world. My work specifically is a very specialized field where it really is targeting it on, we have substance abuse issues, mental health issues,
Yep.
which came first, which is which. But right now, Mary just sent me a text, my life isn't worth living. And Mom in Cleveland now is frantic because her daughter in Minneapolis or in Sarasota is sending her that text.
Yeah.
The family has been figuring, we're in chaos. And that's when, and as I tell my families, that chaos is exactly, unfortunately, what helps. It's like chaos is like a petri dish for keeping your loved one sick.
Right.
And you trying to handle this yourself, even if you were a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist or whatever you do, the thing about it is that you're so emotionally connected to the outcome, how it's very, very difficult for a family to try to go to that 40,000 foot level and be able to look down and go, okay, let's do this, 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 and this, and stand by that plan. And that's why bringing somebody like myself in
Right.
I feel is an essential part of really looking for a long-term paradigm shift on how we're going to operate with Mary.
And again, I don't consider what I do anywhere near what you do. Mine is a short term, at that moment, helping someone to try to get past their. Obviously, we say the more time that goes between the thought and where you could get them to, the less the action will take place.
Sure.
So that's all I try to do.
Gotcha.
And then from there, we just try to make a plan to get them to somebody like you or Jen or somebody else. So that's basically it,
Understood.
where you take it a little bit further. So what can we do to help people out there? If someone has a situation where you work with you work with kids, you work with everybody?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. What's a good way to get somebody to start the process?
Sure.
They have their kid that they think is suicidal or depressed. What's the steps they should do?
Well, are you asking when they reach out to me?
No, what should they do at
Oh,
first?
okay.
Is there something that they could say to
might-
start talking and then reach out to you?
The
or-
first thing I always tell a family to do, who finds me or reaches out, or they are looking within the family, what are we supposed to do, is reach out to the people that are professionals that you trust, a licensed psychotherapist, a licensed marriage and family therapist, a licensed social worker, a psychologist that has worked with you or someone in your family that you trust, that you know is able to look at the situation from a more professional, outside, objective standpoint, and then ask for their direction on how to best engage with that loved one. Now, since you're asking me, the answer would be this. Come from the heart. Don't mince words. Be straight up. If you see something, you say something. I tell my families, be intrusive. Be lovingly intrusive. And in today, the world that we live in, unfortunately, with when someone says they're just smoking marijuana, or they're using oil, or it's coke, or whatever. Unfortunately, you can't think like that anymore. Right. And so I tell my families, reach out from the heart, ask real questions. What's going on? Well, I don't want to talk about it. Well, you have to, and be lovingly demanding. And if you're hitting a roadblock, if you're hitting a brick wall, at that point, stop pushing.
Okay.
When you get to that point where your 16-year-old daughter in Weston, or your 15-year-old son in Palm Beach Lakes is saying, I don't care, I'm going to my room and I'm not talking, and leave me alone, that's probably the moment to step back, regroup, and perhaps reach out to somebody like myself, or to reach out to a professional psychotherapist or counselor and ask for I need some intervention help right now, because I don't want families to push, and next thing you know, your loved one who's already in a corner ends up doing something to demonstrate how truly unwell they are.
And I have to tell you, what you're saying hits me personally. Obviously, with my son's situation, he did all that, and we didn't know. My wife is a nurse. Mm-hmm. I keep talking about that.
Yep.
I've been involved with the suicide prevention. Again, the one thing you said was absolutely spot on. Even if you are a therapist, I know psychiatrists and everything else that have it in their family, and they don't know what to do with their own kids.
Yeah.
Because it's an emotional situation. You don't think clearly like you would with somebody else. When my son was going through it, he wouldn't talk. There was nothing I could do. He would lock himself in his room. He would lock the door.
Right.
And again, we didn't know what to do. I wish I knew you back then. It would have been a lot easier. But, you just start making calls, you're frantic, and you don't know where to go. So how can someone get a hold of you? Yeah,
the easiest way, and this is my worldwide hotline, it's a pretty simple 305 number that I've had for the last 30 years. It's 305-467-8666, 305-467-8666. And of course, online, you can go to careplanpro.com. careplanpro.com. That's my website. It's an informational website to give you some more background on what I do and the types of things to look for when you have a loved one in crisis.
You have to put your name in the website, by the way. I couldn't find your name anywhere in there.
Yeah.
But
probably right.
I was like, you're a little modest, because what you're doing is incredible.
Yeah, I'm curious, when somebody makes the call, what steps should people expect to go through in order to get their family help?
Yeah, so the simple answer here is number one, that not everybody's going to be on board, but to definitely reach out to the people that I tell the callers, my clients, reach out to the people that you love the most, that love your loved one the most, that you can trust. Ask for their opinions. There's going to be dissenting opinions on having somebody like me come in, and I get that. But I want the families to really do some major, even though they're in crisis, and even though they're sometimes ready, Evan, just get here, whatever we need to do. I always want to give the family just a moment to breathe and just process this experience, because not only am I going to get your loved one help, but we're also in the process of doing that. We are going to therapeutically break a few ribs in the process of doing this CPR that we're about to do on your loved one, meaning that your husband's issues are going to come out, your sister, your daughter, your issues. But in the process, not only by doing that are we going to get your loved one the help that they need, but we're also going to help establish a solid foundation for long-term recovery. Once they've done that, then it's a matter of setting up a pre-intervention meeting, which is where we get together, we go over all the issues, the concerns. What if she runs? What if he walks? What happens if he wants to kill himself or whatever? What happens if a boyfriend, a girlfriend tries to rescue them? What, this and that. We go over all that. Once we're rock solid ready to move in and enter into the therapeutic version of the operating room here, that's when we then meet with the individual. Could be the same evening or it's typically the following day. Then we conduct the intervention. We start off with all the love. We start off with all the wonderful qualities that the individual possesses. We never hit somebody up with, you're destroying your mom, and if you don't do this, you're not going to have that, and you're out on the streets, and we're not going to. No. We start off from a place of love and understanding. But it's kind of like, and I don't mean, and I'm definitely not aging myself here with the Theodore Roosevelt comment I'm about to make, because nobody was alive back at the end. But his statement was, the concept was, you walk tall and carry a big stick, a big therapeutic stick. And at the end of the day, I always want my families to know that we're not about cutting off ties. We're not about taking away resources. We're not about filing Marchman Acts and Baker Acts and all that stuff. However, you got this beautiful home out in, pick a neighborhood, name any neighborhood, wherever, Boca Raton, right? You've worked so hard to amass whatever you have, and nobody can enjoy anything because your person that you love the most, your diamond, is suffering. Something has taken over, whether it's mental health, whether it's addiction, whether it's that boyfriend you can't get rid of from back in New York who just keeps calling her. Something has taken over your loved one's spirit and their soul. So we're going to work together as a team to plow through very carefully and surgically with whatever it is, and then ultimately we're going to let that part of your loved one who's not well know we are going to decimate them. We are going to decimate them with a strategically loving plan of action so that we can extract that beautiful daughter, that beautiful son, that husband who works so hard and is now battling symptoms of late onset psychosis or whatever. And we're going to get them back. But it's going to be a battle.
And
That's the best answer I can give you.
No, it's great. I mean, when people are going through crises, like families, you just kind of touched on it, there's such a fragmentation that happens among all the people that love that person, and you basically are the coach that comes in and creates that team.
You got it.
And reminds people of, like, we're all on the same page, and what we're trying to accomplish is an ultimate goal. It doesn't matter what route we take.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah.
I'm really glad you mentioned about the Baker Act and Watchman Act, because that's a little pet peeve of mine. I've known several psychiatrists that basically ask me why do I do this, why do I try to help people, and why don't I just Baker Act them? And
Sure.
The Baker Act is great for certain situations,
Absolutely.
but not all situations.
Correct.
And my point to them is, you Baker Act somebody, they're going to be in for 72 hours, they're going to come out, they're going to be in the same, and they're going to be in the same position.
If not worse, right.
And my point is that they're going to, at that time, they're going to seclude themselves more because they're not going to want to be Baker Act again, so they won't open themselves up.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. And as a licensed psychotherapist, when I'm walking into a case where a person may or may not meet criteria for a Baker Act, it's a very delicate decision on how that's going to be properly handled, because by statute, if I don't Baker Act somebody and they are presenting as a danger to themselves or others, right?
Okay.
And something happens, the question is, Evan, didn't you have responsibility to do that? But by the same token, understanding exactly what you just said. But if we do that, aren't we only going to be like making this guy or girl even more irate and angry, and they were just making those statements just to get some attention here, where we're right? So what you did, that becomes a very delicate part of the intervention process, but and also from a statutory licensure standpoint, it's also very delicate because by initiating that process, you're taking away somebody's civil liberties, their civil, and so for that reason, you have to be very careful how you even go about discussing it. You cannot use it, and I'm putting this out there to all the interventionists out there and all the counselors, whoever, you can't use a Baker Act. You can't say, well, if you don't go get help, then we're going to do this, because at the end of the day, it's not about using it as a form of leverage. It's about, if you meet criteria, you need to get help.
Yeah.
It's about, however, with the context of an intervention, the Baker Act, the Marchman Act, the 302 in Pennsylvania, the 5150 in California, the Pink Slip in Ohio, Kendra's Law in New York, I work all over the country, so I got to know some of these
Absolutely.
deals, statutes. It's really about, from my intervention standpoint, it's about educating that individual. Your family wants you to understand that these are the boundaries that they're ready to establish and follow through with in the event they have to go there. By no means it's a threat. It's simply educating you, but this is how much these people love you, that they're willing to go to a point, and just what Alan said, they're willing to go to a point that they know is probably going to, at most, upset you, put you in an environment that you may not really belong, but they're prepared to go there simply because they love you that much.
And that's the point you got to make, that you're doing it out of love. You're not doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not from a punitive standpoint. The intervention is not a punitive effort.
Right. And the person, it's hard to get the person to understand that when you're trying to do an intervention, I'm sure. So that's a
It's hard to get the families to understand that.
You said something on the podcast.
I gotta be careful what I say.
Yeah. You said something on the podcast that I was just listening to recently.
Yeah.
And it was, be careful about bringing me in an intervention, because it's going to be an intervention on the parents as well as the kids, or I might have said it wrong, but
No, it's true. In other words, when a family reaches out to me, I always let them know, look, I'm going to, and I don't mean to be like the Liam Neeson character in, what's his name? What's that?
Taken?
Taken. It's not like, I will find you and I will get you help. It's not like that. But I do let families know that I eat, breathe, and sleep this. And I don't, and I've got a whole bunch of background, the reasoning why and all that other stuff. But at the end of the day, in the process of getting your loved one some help, we may very well be reaching out to people that are supplying the coke to your daughter, and that may very well be the same person that's supplying the coke to your husband.
Okay.
You may have a problem with alcohol yourself. Your depression, your anxiety, all those issues may come to the forefront, but you love your daughter so much that you'll do whatever it takes. And bring me in if you're ready to go there, because we're going to get this done. And by the way, as a result of doing this process, not only are we going to help them, we're going to help you and the rest of the family.
And that's what needs to be done. It's a family crisis together. What is your definition of crisis? If someone has their kid that's just not getting up, not doing things, what is the point that they should contact you or go to get help in general?
I think if they're not getting up, if they're not doing things, if it's not a situation where the person is using mood-altering substances, where they are not suicidal, or at least presenting that way, if you really have behavioral issues, definitely reach out to a therapist, a counselor, a social worker, psychologist. Go through that process. Then, in the event that that's not coming together, then keep going back, and it will work eventually. I come in specifically when it is a substance abuse or a mental health crisis where the person is out of control, mood-altering substances, suicidality, bipolar, raging mood swings, depression, psychosis. So I want there to be a nice differentiation between a teenager who's just having behavioral issues versus somebody who really needs to have somebody come in and lovingly flip the script and intervene and get them to a program.
So, Evan, I was wondering too, I have certainly considered calling interventionists in the past on behalf of my clients, but I'm always asked, how much does it cost?
Sure.
Is this going to work? And I think it's an important question to bring up here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like, I'll give you a simple answer. Simple answer is a qualified intervention could range anywhere from $3,000 to maybe $8,000, somewhere in that $3,000 to $8,000 range. And then the family has to ask themselves, what is the real cost of not bringing in somebody to help? The lost time at work, the potential legal fees when your son or daughter, husband or wife gets caught and do whatever they're doing, and at a minimum, a retainer for an attorney is how much? $5,000-$10,000, depending upon the charges.
Right.
Plus the fact that we may lose people. You can't even put it. That's something you can't even put a price on that.
Exactly.
So for that reason, just a general reference point, $3,000 to $8,000 for an intervention, somewhere in that range.
But essentially, it's an investment.
Absolutely.
It's going to have a positive outcome. It's going to pay it's going to pay itself back.
Absolutely, yeah. Without question. At least from my experience, I get that question all the time. You know, what's the difference if we just get them in a car and get them someplace, or we have you come in? And I always let the families know, the clients know, you may be able to use enough leverage to get them in the back of your car, but how are we going to keep them in the program? And so this is where having the intervention really helps to establish a more solid foundation within the whole family fabric for long-term recovery.
And I gotta say, unfortunately, we gotta get going.
You gotta be kidding me.
It
I know,
goes
it's
so
so
quick.
fast.
But, you know, I enjoy this show so much because of meeting someone like yourself, and it gives me another
Likewise.
tool now to help some people. I really enjoyed it, so and we didn't even get into your TV performances.
TV performance, what?
What? Keeping up with the Kardashians? Or,
Yeah.
So, anyway, I won't go there, but hopefully we could have you back on another time.
I'd love to, sure.
So, Evan, give just your phone number again. And
Yeah, sure. So it's Evan Jarshower. My direct number is 305-467-8666, 305-467-8666. And I work all over the country. It just happens to be a dateline that I've had forever, and I ain't changing it. But I definitely want to thank you guys, both Jennifer and Alan, for having me come out, for sure.
No, I really appreciate it.
Me
Again, we
too.
have
It's
Jennifer
great.
Hoskins-Topko here today, so thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
And again, if you're in crisis, don't hesitate. Reach out. Call the 1-800 number, 1-800-273-TALK, or you can call locally 211. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to ask you one other question.
I'm done, and I'm never going to come out. What? No, I'm joking. I'm good. What's your question? I am not doing this. No way. This is not. No way. All of a sudden I become a diva, right?
It goes so fast,
One of the things
doesn't it?
that I just, like when we're taught what we do, we're taught not to be emotional when we talk to
Sure.
someone. We talked about like being a caring voice, nothing high, nothing low, just
Sure.
very monotone type of thing. Is that, I was going to talk about that on the show. Obviously, we didn't have enough time on it, but I'm going to put it on this recording if you're okay with it. But
Oh, should I get back over here?
yeah, you can.
Okay.
How does a parent talk to the kid? How does a parent present themselves in a way where they don't upset the kid? Obviously, they're upset as it is, but they don't.
Yeah, I think it's just about coming from the heart. Don't try to be a therapist. Even if you are a nurse or a therapist, don't be a therapist. Just come from the perspective of, look, you come home every day, you go right to your room. I speak from experience, myself and my kids, so I got this. You come home every day, you don't say anything, you go right to your room, you play on your video games. Then when I ask you what's going on, you tell me nothing's up. Then I get the calls from the school that you're having issues, right? But nothing's going on. So you can't poke and you can't prod, because that'll just push them further.
Right.
So it's sometimes just about saying, look, let's try to talk here and work through this, and let's find out what's going on, because if not, I'm going to get us some help. And you have to just put it out there, and I'm going to do that, because I'm not going to let us, because I love you too much. I love you too much for this to fester and build. Well, and then ultimately you may end up where the kid says to you, or your daughter or whatever says, that's because daddy left. Or because you're drinking, Mom. Are you happy? Are you happy? You finally got out of me? And I'm so embarrassed. And I'm saying, I'm so embarrassed to have anybody come home. And I feel so isolated from the world. Is that what you wanted to hear, Mom? And Mom, but be careful what you ask for. So when you get that, the mom goes, I did want to hear that. Now we need to get some counseling here, because I don't know how to process this. This is so far beyond my pay grade as a parent. But the best way to go into it is, I love you. I know in my heart that something is not right, and I'm not going to just sit here and let you go to your room for years and years, and then at the end you can't wait to get out of here when you're 18.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose these special moments with you. Well, I don't know what to tell you then. Well, I'm telling you then. Since I tried to come to you with love and an open, honest approach, I'm ready to hear you telling me that I have a drug problem. I'm ready to hear you telling me, and if you're going to do it, you got to be letting them know, if you think that I'm a jerk, I can handle it. You're not going to offend me. If you think that my boyfriend or my girlfriend is terrible, I'm going to just say it. And that's the kind of stuff. But you start off in that open approach. If there's nothing breaking, you got to bring in, you got to let them know, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring us in a counselor, and I would probably look for a counselor that does house calls. because you're never going to get them to go to that office. It'll be a nightmare getting to the office.
See, that's the issues that we're having down here, though, in Florida. You don't have that kind of. I mean, you do have the mobile crisis hub.
No.
But
We've done house calls for through
Yeah,
Clarity.
and what you do is, and this is where you become a good consumer too. The parent or the loved one says, I know there's a lot of therapists out there, and I also know that Billy or Mary is not going to care about waking up on time to go to their session. So I'm going to find myself a counselor who will. Now, granted, that then changes price scales as well for costs. Now, if you can't go there, you can't go there. But if you can, and you have the resources to do that, get yourself a counselor that can actually make a house call. Because the faster that, and if we're talking about adolescence here, the faster that your son or daughter realizes that their home, that room that you provide to them is not a safety zone of doing whatever, and that you own the house, that you have every right to go into that room and bring in a counselor. You may not have a legal right to throw somebody out of your house, but once again, I got to be careful because I'm not a housing lawyer here.
I won't be putting this
But
in
I'm-
the air anywhere.
But I'm pretty confident that the rights of residency only apply to residency. It doesn't apply to specifically where in the residence you provide a bed for that person to sleep on. So at the end of the day, when you're very well educated, very astute, 16-year-old or 17-year-old says, or even 18-year-old or 19 says, guess what, Mom and Dad? There's nothing you can do. I reside here. You then may be able to come back and say, you may be right. However, we are restructuring your sleeping arrangements within this home. And we have a counselor coming to the home. And the counselor is going to be in your room and provide counseling services. This is where it becomes therapeutic. This is like therapeutic intervention, where we're not getting into drugs or alcohol. We're getting more into a change in the home fabric and the dynamic of the home. So it's also complying with the fact that you can't just boot somebody out of the house.
Right.
You can't. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't shift around the system. That's the best answer I can give you on that.
No, that was a great answer. You know, it's a tough situation. I mean, it's tough for therapists. It's tough for professionals to get through to people that really don't want them to get through to them.
Absolutely.
I mean, to have parents to try and do it and try to deal with it themselves, it's impossible. And people, that's what we got to do.
And I know you're talking about teenagers right now, but we've done it for people who are psychotic or agoraphobic.
Right. Yeah.
Like a lot of paranoia. There are lots of reasons to go into the home and try to help people from that space so that you can lure them out and get them to be more social. We have a lot of people with social anxiety that wanted to do all the stuff online, and we said we can't because we'll go out once, but then you need to come to us. It just helps break the ice.
Right. So I specialize in those types of cases where the person is actively psychotic. They're in their closet, and they have set up a tent, and they have basically they've got a bunch of wires in there, and they've called the State Department, and it's like they're coming, and you're with them. And I do a lot of those interventions and this is all over the country, where first we got to get you stabilized, and then we got to get you to somebody like Jennifer once you are. But I don't go in there. I'll give you an example of how it works with me. So I walk into a house, and we walk in, and the guy's sitting there, she's doing their thing, and then I go, and I usually say, what's going on? As I eat a tortilla chip and have some salsa. I'm telling you, that's what I do. That's part of my
relax,
thing.
yeah, I get it.
Right?
I get that.
But I educate the families first that I'm going to do that. Because otherwise they're going to say, what are you doing to my salsa? And so I eat the salsa.
And you're double dipping too.
Yeah, I usually double dip. I do it on purpose to double dip. And then basically, I'm going, what's going on? Again, the guy or the girl is like, what do you mean? Who is this? And I go, I'm here eating some salsa. And I'm going to hang out and watch. What are you watching? I'm not watching anything. Okay. So what's up? What's going on? Nothing's going on. Okay. What's the matter with your hand? You mean this? I go, well, yeah, dude, you got all kinds of cellophane on there and aluminum foil on your fingertips. What's up with that? I have this worm, these worms, They're coming out. You see it? And now the parents have said they can't see it. Now, what it is, what the person is really seeing, is may I be a little bit graphic?
Yeah.
Is the crusted yellow pus and the underlying white stuff that hasn't dried yet. That's what's happening. But in their mind, there is actual larva that is now working through their body. And so my approach is, dude, if you have larva coming out of your fingers, that must suck really, really bad. And you know what they always say? This guy's right. Finally, somebody gets it. And the mom or the dad is like, okay, what do we do now?
This guy's crazy.
No, well, as I eat my tortilla chip. And by the way, yes, it is a little bit difficult to eat the tortilla chip and the salsa when I'm looking at the dry pus. But I'm cool with it. After all these years of doing this, the bottom line is, when I'm dealing with a psychosis intervention, right, it's really joining them in their experience and going, whatever you got going on, whatever you're hearing, whatever you're seeing, it's not for me to say that you're not hearing it or seeing it. It's not for me to say that that's not worms, because I'm no MD. Now, granted, it doesn't look like worms to me. It looks like dried pus.
Right.
But
No point in arguing.
right. But let's do this. How about if we get out of here? How about if we get out of this? Because this must be a nightmare. It is a nightmare. And this guy's right again. And then they say, but guess what? Before you think you got the get up on me, not only am I not well, but I'm also very intelligent. And I'm not going anywhere. And I'm not going to have anybody trick me into going anywhere. And therein lies the intervention. So you got them at that point where they know that you're with them, but they're also smart enough to go, dude, you think they're going to be that easy? How much did my parents pay you? Now, if you could help me get the worms out of my fingers here, that would be wonderful. But I am not going to go to South County. I'm not going to go to 45th Street or St. Mary's. I don't care. So help me get this out of my hand, but I'm not getting the crazy man. And that's kind of the battle of managing that type of intervention. And ultimately, we get in the transportation to get them the help that they need. Anyway, that's the deal.
But it takes time.
Takes time.
Yep.
Yeah. And then there were the Kardashians.
And that's a Real Convo, bringing hope and awareness to those affected by suicide and mental health. Tune in next Saturday at noon to the Real Convo. Business Services for You LLC is a full-service accounting and financial services firm. Their goal is to provide value to each of their clients by identifying their individual needs and goals. Each client, whether an individual or a business, is given the close personal attention they deserve. They hold their services out as fiduciaries, always acting in their client's best interest. Their staff has over 120 years of combined experience in accounting, bookkeeping, payroll, tax, and financial consulting services. Let them show you what they can do for you by contacting them for a free consultation at 561-376-2564 or info@bizsvc4u.com.
Hey, sorry I'm late. I just left psychotherapy.
Oh, wow. You are in psychotherapy? But you seem so put together.
Ha, thanks. But that takes work. So I go to Clarity Health Solutions in Jupiter. Just walking through the door feels like a retreat. When I'm feeling nervous, angry, sad, or overwhelmed, I can always see my psychotherapist for unbiased feedback, healthy support, and skill building.
Clarity Health Solutions in Jupiter has a great atmosphere, caring staff, and seasoned clinicians, and even a psychiatrist. They believe that therapy is an investment for the future, and they cherish being a part of your journey. So, grow with Clarity. You can call them at 561-781-3333 or book an appointment at clarityhealthfl.com.